Hello everyone, Frank here, and welcome to Season 2 of the Learning Mindset Podcast. It's a skip season because the first season was in a few years ago actually, and now I've decided to rebirth the podcast because I'm able to use some tools to make the podcast exciting and fun and dynamic and all those things. If you tuned into the last episode, you may have noticed that the episode was a conversation between two individuals discussing education, and I don't have two individuals in my studio. So the podcast is not my main social media outlet. My main social media outlet is YouTube with my YouTube channel, Learning and Technology with Frank. So I created the podcast as a test of whether or not I could generate a meaningful conversation by using AI. And I was actually impressed with last episode, I hope you were too, that the conversation seemed natural and the information that was being discussed was delivered in a way that was interesting, and it made me think, and it allowed me to explore the topic rather than just reading a static report. It allowed me to listen to a conversation about the topic. Even if that conversation wasn't with two real humans, it was AI avatars, I still think it was quite useful. And you know, people are always afraid of adopting technologies. There's a sort of a stigma attached that if it's not something that's created by humans, if it's AI generated, how authentic can it be? And the key to the last episode that we had, I think, was that I made sure that the research going into the generation of the conversation was good quality research. And yes, I did use AI for it as well. But I used a tool called Answer This. You can check it out yourself at answerthis.io, and you can try it out for free. It's a tool to generate literature reviews and to do deep research with actual citations to different papers. You can get the DIO numbers, so you can actually go and find the research that went into the AI generated content, which I think is very important to prevent hallucinations or false AI, to prevent AI from giving us false results. So I was very impressed by creating that. And if you do use answerthis.io and you do decide to go pro, use the code FRANK20 and you'll get yourself a discount. It is a tool that I plan to use quite extensively myself, and I think you might find that it's useful for yourself as well. And the reason for that is because it quickly synthesizes a lot of material that we can then begin to work with. So it really reduces it. It creates a time savings, and I think that was very useful. So by creating that high quality deep research, that literature review, using that as the input to Notebook LM, that gave me the podcast that we heard last episode, which I hope was interesting. Now, because the podcast is not my main outlet, again, Learning and Technology with Frank, go ahead, check it out, like and subscribe. But I thought I still wanted to have conversations about education. I still want to explore topics in education. I still want to, not just read about them. I want to have or hear a conversation about them. So Season 2 of the Learning Mindset Podcast is going to be, for lack of a better term, AI generated, but in a way that I think is meaningful and rich and useful. I'm going to introduce each episode, then I'm going to listen to the content that was generated, and then I may interject or I may follow up with my own thoughts at the end. There is also the possibility of, as Notebook LM evolves, that I will be able to participate in the conversation as it occurs, but to have as my guest or to have as my conversation partner, I will have the AI. And this is a great way, I think, to still explore things without necessarily having to have a podcast studio of my own or invite guests in. Maybe that's Season 3. If the podcast generates enough interest, if there's enough conversation around this, maybe we can have combined or combinational types of conversations. And this brings me to the topic of this week's episode of the podcast, and I've already got 4 episodes ready to go for the next few weeks here. This week's episode is technology acceptance. So what does it mean to accept technology? What is the technology acceptance model? When we introduce a new technology like AI, What is our reaction to it? And is it something that we're afraid of? Is it something that we're willing to accept? Ask yourself this question with what I've just told you. I'm creating a podcast using AI tools. How authentic is this podcast? Does it add value? I like to think it does because I was very impressed with last episode. It was a good conversation. Was it my conversation? Was it a conversation between two actual people? No, but was it conversational? And was it allowing me to explore and look at the material in a way that allowed me to engage with it? And isn't that what learning is? Isn't learning about engagement? Whether it's a book or whether it's somebody speaking and lecturing or whether it's something that we read or now whether it's something we generate so that we can understand it in a way that resonates with us. The spoken word, the conversation, that's a great way to learn. And what is our acceptance of those types of conversations when they're not actual humans but AI instead? This may have turned into a human podcast after all. This is a bit of a large preamble to it, but let's go ahead and listen to what was able to be generated by barriers into education technology. So we were looking about technology acceptance models. And if you visit my website, my blog, which is summittechacademy.com, you can also see some blog posts on this topic and even the papers and the deep research that I generated. I'm happy to share that as well. You can reach out to me and let me know if you want me to share my citations or share the research. So without further ado, and no further ado needed, let's go take a look at technology acceptance and barriers to accepting technology in an educational setting.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a topic you've brought us, navigating the world of technology in education.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds simple, maybe put a computer in a classroom, but the sources you've provided reveal, well, a much more complex picture.
Absolutely. It's definitely not straightforward.
So we're going to try and uncover the significant hurdles schools and educators face. Things like just having enough devices and internet all the way to the human elements, like teacher readiness and attitudes.
And even how we measure if it's working.
Exactly. How do we measure success? So our mission is to unpack what your sources tell us about these challenges and also introduce a framework, a helpful one, that helps us understand why some tech initiatives take off and others, well, they struggle.
And maybe how we can overcome some of those roadblocks.
Yeah. The sources make it clear, don't they, that this path isn't a straight line.
Not at all. It's paved with practical difficulties. And often the most fundamental obstacles are really the hardest to clear.
Okay, let's start right there then. The sources point to this foundational problem.
Yeah.
Infrastructure and access. What are the most basic kind of physical hurdles schools hit first?
Well, the research consistently points to limited devices for one, and inconsistent internet access. These are primary issues, especially, in rural schools or maybe under-resourced ones.
Right.
Think about it if you don't have enough computers or the Wi-Fi keeps cutting out.
Yeah.
Genuine engagement with tech for learning. It's pretty much impossible.
And that uneven access, that immediately creates this gap, doesn't it?
Exactly. It creates the digital divide, that persistent gap in access to technology and the internet. And the sources really highlight how this isn't just inconvenient. It actively widens existing inequalities for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. It can limit their future opportunities, both educationally and career-wise.
So it's not just about having any internet, it's having reliable internet and hardware that actually works.
Precisely. Inconsistent connections, outdated equipment. It makes the day-to-day use of tech incredibly frustrating for teachers and for students.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it can turn what was supposed to be an interactive lesson into, a troubleshooting session. Kind of undermines the whole point, right?
Yeah, totally. And none of this happens in a vacuum, right? All these physical barriers, they cost money.
Oh, absolutely. The sources repeatedly underscore that lack of sufficient funding, the budget, is maybe the biggest systemic barrier.
Right.
It affects everything. Buying enough devices, yes, but also the ongoing costs, maintenance, software licenses, tech support.
It adds up.
It really does. Schools struggle to afford even the latest software sometimes, the tools that could offer cutting-edge learning experiences. And then there's the constant need for repairs, replacements, subscription renewals. It's a perpetual financial strain.
So it's definitely not a one-time purchase. It's this ongoing operational cost that many schools just can't sustain.
That's a critical point. That initial investment is one thing, but keeping a functional, up-to-date tech environment, that's a continuous financial challenge.
Okay.
And this brings us actually quite neatly to the people side of things, because even if you had perfect infrastructure, if the educators aren't ready or maybe aren't willing, the tech just won't be used effectively.
The human factor.
Yeah.
Specifically the teachers. What do the sources identify as the main hurdles teachers face?
A major one is insufficient training and professional development. That comes up again and again.
Okay.
Many teachers just lack adequate instruction on how to integrate technology meaningfully into their teaching. Not just as a separate thing, but, in a way that actually enhances the curriculum.
Right, not just using the tool, but using it for something specific.
Exactly. And the sources point out this isn't just about the technical how-to, it's also about developing the pedagogical skills needed. How do you design effective learning activities using technology? Training needs to build that clear link between using the tech and achieving specific learning outcomes.
So it's less about, here's how this app works, and more like, here's how this app helps students really understand fractions better.
Precisely. Without that pedagogical connection, technology often remains, underutilized. Or it's used in superficial ways. Its potential to truly impact learning just isn't realized. And beyond skills, there's also the psychological aspect. Resistance to change, sometimes negative attitudes.
Fear of the new, maybe. Or feeling overwhelmed.
All of that, yeah. Some teachers might lack confidence or worry about things going wrong tech-wise.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe they've had frustrating experiences with unreliable tech in the past. And some genuinely believe that tech can detract from the essential face-to-face interaction, the human element of teaching.
That's understandable, too.
It is. And overcoming this resistance isn't just about more training. It requires support, actually addressing their specific concerns and clearly demonstrating the benefits the value technology can bring when used well.
And adding technology on top of what's already a really demanding job, time has to be a huge factor.
Oh, insufficient time for planning and implementation is repeatedly cited as a significant barrier. Huge.
Right.
Teachers are often juggling heavy workloads, admin tasks, grading, finding dedicated time to explore new tools or plan tech-integrated lessons, or even just troubleshoot issues. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
The sources stress that carving out dedicated time for planning, for collaboration with colleagues, for experimentation, it's absolutely essential for successful integration. It's not a luxury, it's really a necessity.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just having the tool, it's having the time and the mental space to figure out how to use it well within the classroom's complexities.
And that leads us straight into the third major category of barriers: how technology actually fits into the core business of schools, the pedagogy and the curriculum.
Okay, so even if you've got the infrastructure sorted and the teachers are trained and willing, you can still run into problems with how the tech is actually used in teaching and learning.
Precisely. One big issue highlighted is the lack of clear strategic integration plans at the school level or the district level. Without a shared vision or strategy, tech initiatives can end up being kind of piecemeal, uncoordinated. Frankly, a bit random.
Right, like everyone doing their own thing.
Exactly. And if there's no clear plan for how tech supports the overall learning goals, it often just ends up being used as a supplementary tool, sort of bolted on, and that limits its potential impact. The sources emphasize that a strategic approach has to explicitly align technology use with learning objectives, with pedagogical methods, and importantly, with assessment.
So it's not just using tech, it's using the right tech for the right purpose and making sure it's tied to specific learning outcomes.
Exactly right. There's a real risk of mismatching the technology with the learning objectives. Sometimes tech gets adopted because it's new or looks cool, the shiny new toy effect, not because it's actually the best tool for a particular learning goal.
Right.
And using tech just for the sake of using it can actually be counterproductive. It might distract students from the core content, maybe even hinder understanding.
Yeah, I can see that happen.
So effective integration really means selecting tools that directly support the desired learning goals, not just adding novelty.
Okay. And after all that effort to integrate tech, how do you even measure if it's making a difference? You mentioned assessment gets tricky.
Absolutely. The difficulty in assessing technology-enhanced learning is another significant barrier mentioned.
How so?
Well, traditional tests like multiple choice might not capture the skills students develop in these tech-rich environments, things like collaboration using digital tools, or critical thinking online, or creating multimedia projects.
Right. Those are different skills.
They are. So new assessment strategies are needed to measure these unique outcomes. The sources suggest methods like project-based learning or maybe digital portfolios. These can offer a more comprehensive way to evaluate what students have actually learned and can do with the technology.
Okay, so, wow. The barriers are really multi-layered, aren't they? You've got physical access and cost, and the human capacity and mindset of teachers, and then these strategic and pedagogical challenges of how tech is used and assessed. It's a complex picture.
It really is.
How do we even begin to untangle why some people embrace technology in this context while others resist it?
This is where a framework called the Technology Acceptance Model, or TAM, becomes really valuable. It's a widely recognized model specifically designed to help us understand and predict user acceptance and usage of technology.
Okay, TAM, Technology Acceptance Model. What's the core idea behind it?
Well, TAM is basically based on the idea that a person's intention to use a technology is primarily driven by their beliefs about two key things: how useful they think it is and how easy they think it is to use.
Useful and easy. Okay.
Yeah, it's trying to get at the underlying attitudes and beliefs that lead someone to either adopt or reject a technology.
So let's break those two key beliefs down. First, perceived usefulness. What does that mean exactly?
Perceived usefulness, or PU as it's often called, is simply the degree to which a person believes that using a particular technology will help them improve their job performance, or in this case, achieve their learning outcomes.
Okay.
So if a teacher believes a new app will genuinely help their students learn more effectively or make their teaching better in some way, that's high perceived usefulness.
Got it. It's about the tangible benefit, the what's in it for me.
Right.
Or for my students.
Exactly. And the second one is perceived ease of use.
Right. PEOU.
Yes, perceived ease of use, PEOU. This is the degree to which a person believes that using the technology will be relatively free from effort.
Oh, okay.
How steep is the learning curve? Is it intuitive? Does it require hours of struggle just to figure out the basics? If it feels easy to pick up and use, that's high perceived ease of use.
So if I think this new grading software will save me hours and it looks simple to learn, I'm much more likely to actually want to use it.
Exactly. TAM posits that these two perceptions, usefulness and ease of use, directly influence an individual's attitude towards using the technology.
Okay.
Which then shapes their behavioral intention to actually use it. So a positive attitude, fueled by believing the tech is both beneficial and manageable, leads to a stronger intention to adopt it.
And how does this apply specifically to the education context we're discussing?
Well, it provides a really crucial lens for understanding why teachers, and students too, accept or reject specific educational technologies. By assessing teachers' perceptions of the usefulness and ease of use of a new tool, schools can get insight into potential adoption barriers right up front, before they even roll it out widely.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The sources note TAM is a widely used model for measuring tech acceptance in educational settings, globally, actually. So, for example, if teachers perceive a new learning platform as, say, complicated to navigate, that's low PUU.
Right.
Or maybe not directly relevant to their specific subject goals, that's low PU. Then they are significantly less likely to integrate it into their teaching. Doesn't matter how powerful the tool might technically be on paper.
That's a powerful insight. It really shifts the focus from just, deploying the technology to understanding and influencing the human perception of that technology.
Exactly.
So if PU and PEOU are so key, what can schools actually do to enhance these perceptions, to encourage acceptance? Let's start with usefulness, PU.
Okay, so to boost perceived usefulness, to make teachers really see the value, schools need to explicitly demonstrate how the technology aligns with and supports the curriculum and specific learning objectives.
Show, don't just tell.
Right. Provide concrete, subject-specific examples. Show how a simulation illustrates a tricky scientific concept, or how collaborative docs can facilitate group projects effectively, or how adaptive software helps differentiate instruction for different student needs.
Okay.
And showcasing success stories, testimonials from other teachers, colleagues who are already using the tech effectively, that can be incredibly persuasive.
Yeah, seeing a colleague succeed and hearing how they did it makes it feel much more real and achievable.
What about making it seem more efficient? That seems important.
Oh, highlighting efficiency gains is a huge motivator, especially for time-strapped teachers.
Definitely.
Demonstrate how tech can streamline admin tasks, maybe automate parts of grading, or simplify communication with students and parents. Anything that saves time is really appealing. And also, show how tech can enable things like personalized learning or provide faster, more targeted feedback to students. That makes their teaching more effective and potentially less demanding in the long run.
And ultimately, I guess, demonstrating that it actually helps the students learn better.
Yeah.
That must be key for PU.
Absolutely critical for boosting perceived usefulness.
Yeah.
You need to share evidence that thoughtful tech integration leads to improved student engagement, better motivation, and ideally academic achievement gains.
Gotcha.
And this isn't just anecdotal. Share quantitative data where possible, maybe improvements in test scores or participation rates, completion of challenging tasks.
And involve the students. Have them showcase their work or talk about how the tech helped them learn something. That direct impact on students is often the most compelling argument for a teacher.
Okay, that makes sense for making tech seem valuable, PU. Now, how do we make it feel manageable? How do we boost that perceived ease of use, PEOU?
Well, it starts with being thoughtful about the technology you actually select in the first place.
Right.
Prioritize tools with user-friendly designs, intuitive interfaces. Avoid overly complex software with steep learning curves because that can just kill adoption before it even starts.
Makes sense. Keep it simple where possible.
Yeah, the goal is to reduce the effort needed to learn and use it.
Yeah.
That builds teacher confidence. Sometimes customizable interfaces, things teachers can adapt to their own needs, can also help them feel more comfortable and in control.
So choose wisely. But also, how do you support them once they have the tech? Training must be key.
Oh, comprehensive ongoing training and support are absolutely non-negotiable.
Ongoing, not just a one-off.
Definitely not. One-off workshops just aren't enough. Training needs to address teachers' specific concerns, build their technical skills, and importantly, keep reinforcing that pedagogical connection we talked about earlier.
Right, how to teach with it.
Exactly. And offer different training formats, maybe workshops, online modules, one-on-one coaching to accommodate different needs and schedules.
Okay.
And fostering a supportive community is huge. A place where teachers can collaborate, share tips, ask questions of their peers. That's incredibly powerful for building collective confidence and perceived ease of use.
Like building a network of internal experts almost.
Exactly like that. And finally, you absolutely have to circle back to the infrastructure. It has to be reliable.
Yes. The foundation again.
Even the easiest to use software is useless if the internet is down or the computer keeps crashing. So, ensuring stable internet, up-to-date functioning hardware, and readily accessible technical support. That's fundamental to perceived ease of use.
Right.
When teachers know tech issues will be addressed quickly and they aren't just left stranded, it significantly reduces frustration and boosts their willingness to actually rely on the technology.
Takes the fear away a bit.
It does. And having backup plans like loaner devices also helps manage that anxiety.
So it's really a combination, isn't it? Selecting the right tools, providing that continuous support system, and making sure the basic technical environment is stable and reliable.
That's it. That combination builds confidence and makes tech feel less like another hurdle and more like a genuinely helpful tool.
Okay.
And while PU and PEOU are central to TAM, the model has been extended over time to include other factors that also influence acceptance. It's not just the individual's perception in isolation, the environment really matters too.
Interesting. What are some of these broader factors the sources touch on?
Well, one important one is social influence.
Social influence. Okay.
It's about how much an individual perceives that important people around them, colleagues, school leaders, administrators, believe they should be using the technology.
So if my principal is really enthusiastic about a new platform and my department colleagues are all starting to use it, I'm more likely to feel like I should probably get on board too.
Precisely. When teachers see their peers and superiors actively using and promoting technology, it creates a kind of positive social norm that encourages adoption. A supportive, collaborative school culture that genuinely values technology integration is key to fostering this positive social influence.
Okay. What else?
Another key factor is facilitating conditions.
Facilitating conditions.
Yeah.
Sounds like practical stuff.
Exactly. It refers to an individual's belief that the necessary resources and organizational support are actually in place to use the technology.
Okay.
So it's not just knowing how to use it, but believing you have the practical means, the working equipment, the time allocated, the access to help when you need it to actually use it effectively day to day.
Right. It's about feeling enabled by the system around you.
Correct. Addressing logistical barriers like making sure planning time is truly available or scheduling training without creating conflicts, that significantly improves perceived facilitating conditions.
Makes sense. And you mentioned literacy and efficacy earlier.
Yes, the sources also discuss the importance of digital literacy and self-efficacy.
Right.
So digital literacy is basically the ability to effectively and critically use technology.
Okay.
And self-efficacy in this context is a teacher's belief in their own ability to successfully use a specific technology or perform a particular task with it, their confidence in themselves.
Okay, so if I feel generally confident in my tech skills, my digital literacy is decent, and I believe I can figure out this specific new tool, my self-efficacy is high, then I'm going to perceive it as easier to use.
Exactly. And maybe even more useful because you feel you can actually make it work for you and your students.
Right.
Enhancing teachers' digital literacy through foundational training and boosting their self-efficacy maybe through hands-on practice, personalized support, positive reinforcement that directly increases both their perceived usefulness and ease of use. And that leads to greater adoption. Things like peer mentoring and coaching can be particularly effective for boosting that self-efficacy.
This TAM framework with these extensions really helps connect the dots, doesn't it? Between the barriers we talked about earlier and this human element of technology adoption. It's clearly not just about funding devices.
Not at all. It's about shaping perceptions, building confidence, and doing that within a supportive environment.
Have the sources shared any examples of schools that have successfully put these ideas into practice, like getting it right?
Yes, definitely. The sources highlight case studies of schools that have successfully navigated these barriers. They've tackled infrastructure issues, overcome teacher resistance, developed effective pedagogical strategies.
That's encouraging.
It is. And what's particularly inspiring is that these successes weren't just limited to, say, wealthy districts. The examples include schools of different sizes, different locations, varying socioeconomic statuses, even with varied student outcomes historically.
Oh, that's interesting.
It shows that while it's definitely challenging, these barriers can be overcome. And the strategies we've discussed based on TAM seem applicable across different contexts.
And what kind of impact did these successful initiatives actually have on learning? Did they see results?
The research indicates that yes, when technology is integrated thoughtfully, strategically, it can lead to significant improvements. Things like better student engagement, increased motivation, and even gains in academic achievement across various subjects.
Okay.
This includes measurable outcomes like test scores or graduation rates sometimes, but also qualitative benefits like increased student participation, maybe deeper learning experiences reported by teachers and students. One source directly states that technology, when used effectively, really does engage students and can increase academic achievement.
But there's a catch, right?
Always. The key takeaway, however, is that the sources caution that technology is definitely not a quick fix. It's not a silver bullet. Success depends entirely on the planning, the support, and that crucial focus on the human element we've been discussing.
So pulling it all together, what were the absolute key lessons learned from these schools that managed to get it right?
Well, the sources consistently pull out several key themes. First, the absolute necessity of strategic planning. Having a clear vision.
Right.
Second, the value of ongoing, relevant professional development that's tied directly to pedagogy, not just tech skills. Third, fostering a genuinely supportive school culture where maybe taking a risk with technology is encouraged, not penalized.
Yeah.
Also, building strong collegial support among teachers, that peer network we talked about, empowering teachers to find their own resources and solutions too. And finally, consistently reinforcing the value and the purpose of using technology in achieving actual learning goals.
It all seems to tie back beautifully to enhancing those core TAM factors: usefulness, ease of use, and building the right environment with those facilitating conditions and social influences.
Exactly, that's the pattern.
Now, looking to the future, the tech landscape is always changing, isn't it? Are there any emerging technologies the sources hint at that might impact this whole picture?
Briefly, yes. The sources do mention the growing potential role of artificial intelligence, AI, in education.
Ah, AI, of course.
AI-powered tools, things like intelligent tutoring systems, maybe automated grading assistants, personalized learning platforms, they're presented as potential next steps in enhancing teaching and learning.
AI in education. Wow, that feels like a whole different universe of perceived usefulness and
Yeah.
perceived ease of use to unpack.
It certainly does. A topic for a future deep dive, perhaps.
Perhaps indeed. Okay, let's wrap up this exploration then. We've taken a close look at the really multifaceted barriers preventing effective technology integration in education, the foundational stuff like infrastructure and cost.
The critical human factors like teacher training, confidence, attitudes, and just sheer time.
Right, and the challenges in strategically applying and assessing tech within the curriculum itself.
And we use the technology acceptance model, TAM, as a kind of framework to understand why these barriers matter so much, how they impact teachers' and students' perceptions of technology's usefulness and its ease of use, which ultimately drives whether it gets adopted and used well.
And we explored practical strategies for schools to try and boost those perceptions by demonstrating value, highlighting efficiency, ensuring reliability is there.
Providing comprehensive, ongoing support and fostering a positive environment through social influence and making sure those facilitating conditions are actually in place.
And we saw, through some real-world examples from the sources, that while it's definitely challenging, success is achievable when these factors are addressed strategically. And that can lead to real improvements in student engagement and achievement.
It really underscores that making technology a truly transformative tool in education is far more complex than just buying a load of devices.
Absolutely. It's deeply rooted in understanding human behavior, building capacity, providing sustained support, and having a clear shared strategy.
It really is a continuous process of adaptation and support, not a one-and-done thing.
Which leaves us with this final thought for you, our listener. Given the incredible pace of technological change, particularly with the rapid emergence of AI tools that we just touched on, how might our understanding of perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use need to adapt and evolve, not just for educators, but for students too, as they navigate and hopefully embrace these powerful new technologies in the classroom and beyond?
That's a big question, one that will definitely shape the future of education technology.
Indeed it will. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into your sources.
Thank you so much for listening to the Learning Mindset podcast. My name is Frank. You can find me over on YouTube on the channel Learning and Technology with Frank, where I look at topics on how we can learn and teach more effectively with technology. You can see my blog over at Summit Tech Academy, where I write about topics related to learning and technology. And of course, stay tuned and subscribe for more episodes here of the podcast. Again, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.